Hi everybody, this is Diana in LA and Cary in the UK, and we're here to talk about this week's stars. Welcome to our weekly reading where we explore all things astrological. From our two different points of view in two different locations in the world, we bring to you a unique astrological perspective on what is happening right now across the globe. So here we go. And oh boy, in just a few hours on Saturday, this Saturday, Mercury goes retrograde. But I have spoken with so many people this week that asked me, is it Mercury retrograde already? My computer broke down, my dishwasher's not working, I spilled ink on my finals. Every combination of things has occurred. And that's because a few days before Mercury changes direction, it wobbles. And when a planet wobbles, it's in that in-between state where things like that will happen. And you're actually having, they call it a shadow period, before the actual change of direction. And remember, that's really an apparent change of direction. There's actually no directional change, but it visually in the sky, it looks like it's changing directions. And anyway, all of that can be calculated to the minute. Well, the minute that Mercury goes retrograde is today, Saturday, at 3:33 p.m. in Los Angeles. So that means in the UK, it would be around 11:30. And so we start off like that, and we're bringing that shadow wobble with us into this week as we begin the miscommunications that are bound to happen on a Mercury retrograde. So good advice is take your time, say what you mean, write it down first before you say it. Like, get your ideas, your thoughts in order before you speak them during this 3-week period that begins today. So that's one thing that's happening. Cary, what are you seeing from your side of the world?
Hi everyone. While Mercury is wobbling, as you put it, which is a very good description, it's wobbling to the square with Neptune. So not only is it the communication going to be a bit jumbled up more than usual when you have the square of Mercury to Neptune, it's going to be even more defined when you've got a retrograde Mercury squaring Neptune. So careful what you read, careful what you hear. Nothing is exactly what it seems. And you've also got Mars opposed Pluto and Saturn, as usual, squaring Uranus. But Saturn is now retrograding itself, going back to Uranus. Now, while that's going on, there's some very nice stuff. But this is going to be quite a tough week with some very tough talking on both sides of the pond.
Right, and Mercury square Neptune, it's a lot about deception, not saying what you mean, or not being told quite the truth, or things happening that aren't what they seem, like you said, Cary. And so it's retrograde, so it's convoluted, right? It's confusing. It's not clear communication. So really, especially on this particular Mercury retrograde in Gemini, it goes retrograde at around 25 degrees Gemini. It's in its own sign. So it really is, it makes it worse in a way because the sign that rules Mercury, Gemini, is the one that's the most tied up. And so it's very Mercury retrograde, extra Mercury retrograde, and squaring. However, Mercury is also conjuncting Venus today and all through almost Wednesday. So I think we're trying to communicate and we're trying to do the right thing, but there can be a lot of miscommunications.
So with all these squares and oppositions, there's some really nice aspects. And one of them is the Sun trining Saturn. And it becomes exact this week. So that's a real big one. It alleviates the kind of heavy aspects that are taking place. In addition to that, Venus is now going into Cancer and it's going to trine Jupiter. So if you're born around the 21st of Feb, June, October, you're going to really feel the very nice aspects of this combination. And if you've got any planet at that degree, so 0 degrees, 1 degree in water, and also if your rising sign happens to be at 1 or 2 degrees in water, this is a really nice time, and it will feel much better than it has done for quite a while.
Yes, and that aspect of Sun trine Saturn is exact on Thursday. It's all week long. And the other, Venus trine Jupiter, is happening all week long, also exact on Thursday. So Thursday is interesting. We've got these double trine aspects that are exact. So in those early degrees of water signs. So look at your chart. Where are your early degrees of water signs? See what's happening, because Sun trine Saturn, that's a really productive aspect of getting organized, getting ready to do the project, getting ready to get your body together and healthier. It's a great time to start regimes and practices and books, even though Mercury's retrograde, which slows things down a little bit. But I don't mind that, because Mercury retrograde always takes its time. It has to. You have to review the material before you move forward. So it can be, that combination could be interesting where you really are ready by the time Mercury goes direct. But it's also with that Sun trine Saturn, which means your productive energies are aligned with your life. Then Venus is trining Jupiter, which is like blessings and abundance, dreams come true. Like there's really one of the most beautiful aspects there can be is Venus trine Jupiter in water signs. So it's really a week where there's two energies happening, where there's a lot of exact aspects, there's oppositions and squares and trines, and they're all going to be affecting our charts in different ways.
On Saturday, this all comes to a head, so it's going to be very interesting what happens on Saturday, because the Moon, Pluto and Mars are going to form a T-square exact. That is going to have a huge impact on the world stage. So look out for the news that happens on Saturday, because also on Saturday, Mercury is still squaring Neptune exact. So you've got a T-square, Mercury squaring Neptune exact, and you've still got the trine of Venus to Jupiter to lighten things up a little bit, with the underline of Saturn squaring Uranus. So watch what happens on Saturday, because that's going to be quite a tough day from an astrological perspective on the worldwide stage.
And so that's the Moon acting like a trigger, because it goes around quickly, making a T-square to Mars opposed Pluto exact. So it's intense, Mars opposed Pluto. These are those heavy warlike signs that are the deep undercurrents that are happening, getting triggered by the Moon in Aries. So Aries is reactive and volatile. So talk about a trigger. When the Moon is in Aries, it acts even more so like that. Meanwhile, Venus in Cancer, as Cary mentioned, creates this need and desire and cultivation of comfort. Venus wants to be comfortable in Cancer. It wants to make other people comfortable too. And so you might be noticing whether you are or not comfortable in your life, in your home. You may be having more meals in your house, or inviting people into your space and creating family and connection with others in that really welcoming, happy to see you kind of way. I think this whole time while Venus stays in Cancer, we're going to be having a lot more connection with our families, and a feeling of, and because it's trining Jupiter, then even more so, it's like a blessing in our lives. We know who our friends are, and we appreciate our families more. Or we try to create family with our friends, right? So that there's this sense of connection. And that's a beautiful thing. But Saturday really does look like it's going to be an intense day. Friday, Saturday, late Friday, Saturday, where there can be a trigger of some kind, where something kind of out of the blue happens again, triggering that Mars opposition to Pluto exact at 26 Capricorn Pluto, 26 Cancer Mars, and Moon at 26 Aries.
By having the T-square of Mars opposed Pluto exact squaring the moon exact indicates trouble. You know, when everything is exact, it doesn't get any stronger than that. And having the opposition of Mars and Pluto exact indicates some kind of explosive outburst from a sudden quarter.
And with the moon in Aries, talk about a hair trigger, right? That means short fuse, out of control, doesn't pause before they speak, right? They're just gonna, boom, this is what it is. So it's so intense because of Mars is intense, Pluto's intense, and the moon in Aries is intense.
When you look at these aspects for the whole week, you've got this undercurrent which is really challenging. Mars opposed Pluto, Saturn squaring Uranus, the moon causing a T-square, retrograde Mercury squaring Neptune. So these are really tough aspects. And then sprinkled into them, you've got the Sun trining Saturn, you've got Mercury conjunct Venus, which feels very nice. You've got Venus going into Cancer, trining Jupiter, which is absolutely wonderful. So nothing feels the way that it should be, if that makes sense, because you've got all this undercurrent and yet you've got this lightness which is sprinkled around there. And that's a really good way to sum up what the week is all about. It's like this tough undercurrent with some sprinkling of light here and there to carry us through the week. But do watch out what happens on Thursday news-wise and on Saturday, because I think that will be very interesting.
The other thing that's happening pretty tightly is Mars trines Neptune. That's been happening all week long also. It's another trine. And on Wednesday, when Venus moves into 0 degrees Cancer, also Neptune trines Mars, 23 of Pisces and Mars at 24 of Cancer, and the moon conjuncts Neptune. Okay, so that means that's almost dreamy, inspired, inner life, meditation and consciousness expansion. So Wednesday happens, right? With this Mars trine Neptune aspect, with the moon triggering it, making it, heightens it. The next day, Thursday, all those exacts aspects happen and begins the tension as the week ends on Saturday with that T-square. So it's really an intense week. The beginning, a little easier, and as it hits Thursday, all the aspects get more and more exact, and by Saturday, we've got that T-square.
By having Mars trining Neptune, that alleviates the effects of the Mercury square Neptune. So you can see the yin and the yang of what's going on this week, with some very challenging aspects and very lovely aspects, but the week's going to finish in quite a dynamic fashion.
Right, and I'll just add one more point to that. So we've got that T-square, Mars, Pluto, the moon in Aries triggering that T-square. But we also have on that same Mars-Pluto line opposition, it sextiles to Neptune, from Pluto to Neptune, and it trines Neptune to Mars. So even though there's this hard T-square, there's this kind of softening by the trine and sextile to Neptune. And Neptune's got a square to Mercury. So it's just on and on and on. It's like both at once. It's yin and yang. It's this and that. And so it will be an intense week, and especially as it winds up towards the end of the week, but an interesting one. And, you know, it's all what you make of it, right? You could have the hardest aspect in the world in your chart. You could be born with a hard aspect, like Mars opposed Pluto squaring the moon, right? But it's all what you do with it. You can use it as pure positive energy to be a train of energy to create something throughout against all odds, or you can just succumb to the trigger happy reactive state, right? So whenever there's aspects like this, It's all what we do with them. That's what I want to remind you of. So it's not necessarily bad. It's what we do with it. So what are you going to do with it this week? So on that note, we hope you have a wonderful week. And if you're enjoying these Astrocasts, we hope that you will share them, comment. We love your comments, like, and subscribe. And there's even now that notify button, the little bell, where you can get alerted when a new Astrocast comes out. These come out once a week. We love doing them. We love that you're watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye everyone. Have a lovely week.